Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's Tuesday. That means power rankings, week 8 power rankings. I have to be as quick as possible with this video. Okay, I have to hurry. I have to go through it. My power keeps going out for no reason whatsoever. As you can tell, I mean, you can't really tell, but it's not storming. All right, it's a little rainy and cold, but not storming. I pay my bills every month. I'm a good boy, so there's no reason why the power should be going out. I just recorded probably 25 minutes. Got to the very end of the video. Power went out. File got corrupted. I'm trying to keep my cool. So I have to speed through this. So if I go through your team, it means A, I don't like them and I don't care about them, and B, I have to just hurry up and get through it. Okay. Before we get into it, though, I just want to say, like the video, leave a comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow the Twitters. If you do that, I'll forever be indebted to you. So please help us out. All right. Let's not waste any more time. I have to go quick. Let's start with the worst team in football. That's obviously the New York Jets. I was pretty close to moving them up. You look at the score, 18-10. They played Buffalo close. I mean, they were winning for a lot of that game, but you rewatched the game, which I did. They got completely dominated. All right, it was just a sloppy game from Buffalo. Buffalo couldn't finish drives. The score is not really an indicator of how that game went because the Jets got utterly dominated. Sam Darnold's terrible. I've seen enough. Get him out of here. Trevor Lawrence is coming to New York. Sam Darnold is going elsewhere. All right, next up we have the Dallas Cowboys, who I do think is the worst team in the NFL. I do think the Cowboys are the worst. I cannot justify putting them below the Jets just yet. But I do think Cowboys are the actual worst team in the NFL. I have them here at 31. Just obviously injuries play a big role into it, but they weren't a good team before the injuries. All these injuries happened, and now they're absolutely terrible. They're one of the worst. They're maybe this current Cowboys team, the way that the team looks with injuries, is probably the worst Cowboys team I've seen in my lifetime. I've talked about it a million fucking times. They just traded Everson Griffin for a 6th-round pick, literally just 5 minutes ago. So see Everson. I would say, it was nice to have you here, but it wasn't at all. And yeah, the team's absolutely terrible. I expect a lot of people to get traded, but then again, it's like who's even on this roster that can be traded? They're all so bad. All right, they're 31. Okay, next up we have Jacksonville Jaguars here at 30. 6 straight losses. 6 straight losses. This is kind of who we thought this team was going to be. Their defense is absolutely horrific. As you can see, they gave up 39 points to Herbert. And, the Chargers have scored a lot of points this year, but still the defense is absolutely terrible. Minshew didn't look bad. Minshew did not look bad against the Chargers, against a pretty good defense, but I think his time's kind of coming to an end sooner rather than later. Maybe they look at getting a quarterback this year. Maybe they roll with Minshew one more year and just draft to build the team, but I don't think he's the guy. I don't think he's the guy you build your team around. Next up at 29, we have the Giants. Oh, man, they should have won. There's really no excuse for them to lose that game on Thursday night against the Eagles. Evan Ingram, you play in the NFL, right? You play in the NFL, you catch the ball. Terrible drop. Evan Ingram's a bust. Evan Ingram is a bust. Daniel Jones, Daniel Jones kind of obviously hasn't been fantastic, hasn't been great, but unlike Sam Darnold, I think he shows flashes of being good way more often. So he's only a 2nd-year guy. I don't know. They're going to have an interesting decision to make in the offseason because they're going to have a high enough pick to really consider drafting a quarterback. I don't think they do. I think they give Daniel Jones one more year. I think he's shown enough to where maybe you don't, unless you get the number 1 overall pick, then I think you have to take Trevor Lawrence. But I don't really see that happening. Next up, we have the Houston Texans at number 28. I've been nice to them all year in these power rankings, right? Because their schedule's been so brutal. But you're 7 weeks into the season. You are what your record says you are at this point, and you're 1-6. So the defense is terrible. Offensive line is horrible, man. Deshaun was running for his life against the Packers on Sunday. Running for his life. He did all he could. David Johnson is washed. These receivers just don't move the needle enough. Although, Randall Cobb looked pretty good on Sunday. Cooks and Fuller have both had their moments. And, that's it. This defense just isn't good enough, man. You're 1-6. You probably have to either win out or go 9-1 the rest of the way to make the playoffs more than likely, which – I'm sorry, 8-1 the rest of the way to make the playoffs, which I don't see happening with this defense. So, and the thing that sucks is they don't have their 1st-round pick. So it's bleak. It's bleak in Houston, to say the least. Bill O'Brien fucked that franchise. Man, he should be a wanted man for murder. Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings at 27. They moved down on a bye week. Why? Because this team disgusts me, and I don't like thinking about them. I think it's because of Kirk Cousins. He's horrible. So let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons, number 26. Oh, it has to be mental, right? There has to be a huge mental roadblock for this team. I don't know if it was because of Super Bowl a couple years ago or what the reasoning is, but it's just like when the team has a lead late in the game, it's like the second the other team scores or the second the other team starts knocking on the door, it's over. This Atlanta team is just going to crumble and collapse in on itself like a dying star. And that's what they did again on Sunday. I saw an Atlanta fan on Twitter say, only we could lose because we scored a touchdown. And that's exactly the second that Todd Gurley fell into the end zone, you knew the game was over. You knew that Atlanta was going to fuck it up, and they did. Just, again, but it's tough because they've pretty much been in every single game. But they've coughed up almost every single game in hilarious fashion. Off the top of my head, I think of 3 games that they should have easily won: Cowboys, Bears, and now the Lions. And I'm sure I'm missing one. So right there, that makes you a 3-3 team. I'm sorry, a 4-3 team, and your season looks way different. But they're 1-6, just like I said to Houston. You're 7 weeks into the season. You are what your record says you are. Next up, we have the Bengals, who actually move up a spot despite losing. Yeah, I'm putting them above some of these other 1-win teams just because the Bengals have been competitive. Their defense is really bad. I think they probably need a complete and total coaching overhaul. I don't think Zach Taylor's a move. Their defensive coordinator's a trash can. They just got to move on from some guys. But Burrow looks good, and they've competed with teams. Is 25 a little too high? Maybe. On paper, should they be above Atlanta, Minnesota, Houston? On paper, when you look at the rosters, probably not. But they've been a little bit more competitive, I would say. Next up, we have Washington football team, who makes a pretty big leap after beating the Cowboys. A lot of that has to do more with the teams below them because you beat the Cowboys. Every team in the NFL should and could beat the Cowboys, okay? If you consider yourself a competent franchise, you need to beat the Dallas Cowboys. So, they take care of business, and they look pretty impressive. But, again, the Cowboys team is so terrible that it's just like, what should the takeaway be? If they can get Terry McLaurin consistently in the game plan and get Antonio Gibson consistently in the game plan, then they're going to do pretty good on most weeks because their defense is good. Their defense looked good on Sunday, again, against a terrible Cowboys team. But, this team is very much alive. And I would say, I wouldn't say 50-50, but they have a decent chance of winning the division, legitimately. If they can, play more consistently, which I don't know if it's possible. Next up, we have the Denver Broncos, who just got steamrolled by the Chiefs. If you're a Broncos fan, you have to be a little concerned about what you've seen from Drew Lock. I know he's been hurt. I know that he's only been back, 1 game, 2 games? But he's had some bad moments, and it looks like he's regressed from last season, which is not what you want to see. Obviously, they got a lot of injuries and stuff going on. But, yeah, I don't know what the move is for this team moving forward. Obviously, get healthier is the move. But, yeah, I don't know what you want me to say. They just got destroyed by the Chiefs. Next up, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. Listen, man, I've seen this all over Twitter. Eagles fans really hyping themselves up, thinking, God, we just sneak into the playoffs, man. We sneak into the playoffs. Anything is possible. No, you guys are going to get steamrolled. This is such a bad team. This is such a bad team that winning against the Giants was so laughable. A game you really had no business winning. Carson Wentz is shit for 55 minutes, and then, admittedly, has an amazing last 2 drives to win the game, an amazing throw to Boston Scott to win the game. It's like, that right there perfectly personifies Carson Wentz, right? Just some terrible moments, some amazing moments. Really no in between. There's really no in between. It's either horrible or really good. No in between. And, I see a lot of Twitter people, Eagles fans on Twitter be like, well, I don't get why Carson Wentz gets such shit on so much on Twitter, why everybody talks it. It's because you guys want him to be in that upper echelon quarterback conversation. You want him to be there. This is how these guys get treated. Is it unfair? Maybe. But you want him to be there, which he's not there. You want him to be there. He's going to get treated like that. That's how they're going to talk about him. Okay? So Eagles are at 22. They're probably going to fall ass backwards into this division. They wouldn't make the playoffs in any other division. Like, this isn't a good team. This is not a good team. A 1-point win against the Giants does nothing for me. When you needed a last-second touchdown, and you should have lost the game if Evan Ingram didn't have bricks for hands. All right, next up we have, one of the biggest falls from grace. The Patriots are bad. Ladies and gentlemen, they're bad. There's no overreaction. There's no knee-jerking. This team is terrible. No. Not terrible. Below average. This team is below average to borderline bad. I know that they don't have any offensive weapons. Now N'Keal Harry's hurt, I believe, but he wasn't doing anything before. Complete and total bust. Terrible pick. The Patriots are low-key not very good at picking. Not very good at drafting, at least in the first round, right? Bill's just really good at getting a lot out of little as terms of coaching, as far as coaching goes. But as a general manager, there's been some shaky draft moments. But with that being said, man, I get that Cam hasn't had a lot of weapons. I get they've had a good amount of guys opt out, but dude, Cam has looked horrific since coming back from COVID. Again, I get that there's not a lot there as far as offensive talent goes, but he's been really, really bad. I don't know if missing practice from COVID had an effect on that. I don't know if there's like lingering side effects from having COVID that's affecting him. I don't know. I don't want to go that far to make that statement, but yeah, he's been bad. And then I saw a tweet earlier today that they're shopping Stephon Gilmore. I have a hard time believing that report, but that would be nuts. That would be nuts if they were. If they were just punting the season and traded him, that would be nuts. All right, moving on to, okay, these next two, I had a tough time deciding who to put over who these next two, and this feels really low for this team, but this is just where I have them. It's the Carolina Panthers at number 20. I want them to be top 20 because I do think they are, but it's just kind of way this all shapes out. They've lost 2 in a row. I think that has to do with it more than anything, but this team this team competed against the Saints, a team that on paper, should be much better than them. They went to New Orleans and got Joey Sly hit that. That would have been some legendary shit. I mean, a big dick move going for a 64-yard field goal, and he missed it by an inch. That would have been nuts if he hit that, send it to overtime. But, yeah, this is a good offense. Teddy has looked really good the past couple of weeks. Teddy has looked really, really good the last couple of weeks. Their defense has been playing better. We've said that the defense has been one of the bigger surprises of the season, this Carolina defense. And, I think at 3-4, they play the Falcons on Thursday Night Football this week. They win that game, a game that they probably should win. They're in the hunt, man. They really are. And CMC's coming back. I don't think it's Thursday. It doesn't sound like it'll be Thursday, but it's soon. CMC's coming back probably next week. That's as of right now, as of Tuesday. So if you're watching this and he's back, that's all I know. All right, next up we have the LA Chargers. Justin Herbert finally gets a win, beating Jacksonville. Herbert looked amazing again. Dude looks so good. I mean, he's the truth. Chargers fans, you guys should be very excited. I mean, 2-4, right? 2-4. This team is in the hunt because I think they're probably better than the record indicates. Maybe they're around an average team, maybe they're around a 500 team, but they'll compete with anybody. We've seen that. All 4 of their losses were one possession losses against really good teams. You had the Saints, you had the Bucks. Who else am I missing? You get the gist, right? They've played really tough against higher opponents, high quality opponents, and I think as the season progresses, they're going to get more and more comfortable. They're going to gel a little bit more. They're going to get healthier, and I think that they could sneak into the playoffs. They really could. They're going to have to start stringing some wins together, but they're a good team. They're better than their 2-4 record indicates, that's for sure. Next up, we have the Detroit Lions. Is it happening? I picked the Lions to make the playoffs. I said after I think week 3, I was out. I was jumping off the ship. I'm back. They have sucked me back in. Okay, a fluky ass win against the Falcons, yes, but the Falcons are kings of fluky ass wins. The Falcons are kings of giving up fluky ass wins. Stafford, you got to give him props, man. He's been solid as hell this season. Kenny G reminds me so much of Des Bryant in the sense that he doesn't get like a ton of separation on dudes, but he's just a contested catch monster. And yeah, this defense has also played better the past couple weeks. That's something to keep an eye on, right? DeAndre Swift looks good. DeAndre Swift's starting to get a little bit more and more involved. This team, man, it could sneak in. Next up, we have, yes. I love shitting on this team, guys. I absolutely love shitting on this team. I don't know what it is I hate about them, but I just do not like them. The Chicago Bears fall all the way down to 17. Yes, they have 5 wins and 5-2. Last night, they were playing for the best record in the NFC. Do not care, man. I don't care. This team just does not have it. This team is not 5-2. This team is not a 5-2 team. Look at some of the other 5-win teams, or some of the other 6-win teams, and then you look at the Bears, and it's like, oh, gross, right? It's like poverty. It's poverty of the 5-win teams. It's the slums of the 5-win teams. This is what the Chicago Bears team is. This offense is so terrible. It's so terrible. Nick Foles is not good. Matt Nagy is a joke of a coach. I don't know why Cordell Patterson is getting 8 touches a game. That 4th and 1 jet sweep, is that just inexplicable, right? Inexplicable. Their defense is good. The defense is maybe even great. But the thing is for this team to want to, if this team wants to be like a Super Bowl level team or a real contender, they need their defense to score like 1 or 2 touchdowns a week. And I know that they got a scoop and score last night, but they need their team to be like 2 years ago where they were like scoring 2 to 3 touchdowns a night, it felt like. Right? Like in putting their offense in really good positions, like putting their offense in enemy territory immediately. But this defense, this year's defense, it's more of a bend but don't break defense, which is fine, and they're good at it. But it's just their offense isn't good enough for that. Their offense isn't good enough to go and drive downfield and score. It's just not. It's not good enough. Their offense needs their defense to put them in good spots. And while the defense is capable of doing that, not to the extent it was 2 years ago, if what I'm saying makes sense. So I'm at 17. I mean, starting 5-1, it would require an epic collapse and not make playoffs. But I think this team is capable of that epic collapse. I really do, especially with an extra playoff spot. But I think that team is capable of an epic collapse. Next up, we have 16. We have the Miami Dolphins fresh off a bye week. Really not much to say then. Obviously, Tua is making a start this upcoming week against the Rams. That is going to be interesting as hell. I am excited to watch that game. I saw a report today earlier today that they were shopping Xavier Howard, and then the Dolphins came out and refuted that report, basically saying, "Yo, shut up, idiot," to whoever made that report. So that's good. I don't think trading anybody makes sense for this Dolphins team right now. You already have a ton of picks, and you're 3-3. You're definitely competing. You have a young team. I think it's good that you hold on to your guys. Maybe even make a move to get better. I don't know. And tell your young team, hey, we're competing. We're going to try to win. I think that builds a great culture. Again, you already have a huge number of picks. So I think this team should definitely hold on to their players. There's no reason to trade Xavier Howard. Next up, we have the Las Vegas Raiders, who drop out of the top 10 for me after getting smoked by the Buccaneers. This defense is a bottom 3, bottom 4, bottom 5 defense. They're really bad defensively. Offensively, I know it wasn't that pretty against the Buccaneers, but the Buccaneers are a top 2, top 3 defense. They're that good. And yeah, that's really all I have to say. I mean, this Raiders team, 3-3, that's probably what they are. They're probably around a 500 team, but they're going to play you tough. They're going to play you tough. Enough of the Derek Carr's not getting benched, guys. He's not. Stop wanting it. Stop wanting it. Josh Jacobs has been a little shaky, though. I will say that. He's been a little shaky. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns, who win a crazy game against the Bengals. Baker Mayfield. My Lord, man. If Baker could, obviously 22 straight completions, 5 touchdowns in the game, that's not something you can consistently rely on out of any quarterback in the NFL. But if Baker could get some consistent play, because he looked like shit at the start of this game and then was a monster to end the game out. If you could get that consistently, this Browns team would be so good. I really do believe that. This Browns team would be so good. Obviously, OBJ's injury hurts. I know he hasn't performed to the expectations or lived up to the expectations of Browns fans and NFL fans around the league, but he's still been solid, and losing him hurts, especially since you have Nick Chubb out too. So your 2 of your best offensive weapons are now hurt. Yeah, I like this Browns team. I do. And the thing about this Browns team is, they're 5-2 right now. If they can just continue to beat the teams they're supposed to beat, they'll make the playoffs, right? And that's what they've done so far. So you have to give them credit. Obviously, their 2 losses to the Ravens and Steelers were ugly. They're really ugly. If this is a playoff team, you'd like to see them compete more with those teams because they're going to have to down the line anyway. But they've beaten the 5 teams that they're supposed to beat. So you have to give them credit in that regard. And they need to continue to do that if they want to make the playoffs, which I think is very much a possibility. All right, next up we have the San Francisco 49ers, who have looked impressive 2 weeks in a row against the Rams in New England. Rams obviously are a really good team. New England, the jury's still out, but it looks a little rough. But they went into Foxborough and absolutely demolished them. I think it was the worst loss for Bill Belichick at home since he's been in New England. Obviously, this is still such a tough team to gauge because they're so injured. And it happened again on Sunday, right? Raheem Mostert's out. Jeff Wilson comes in, looks really good, and then he's hurt. And now he's going to miss extended periods of time. But we've seen Kyle Shanahan, it really doesn't matter who's back there. I could go back there and get 80 yards, 5 yards per carry, and a touchdown in that San Francisco offense. They're going to continue to be next man up mentality that they have. They're just a really well-run organization. But their injuries definitely put a ceiling on them. But if they were to get healthier, as healthy as possible, which, it doesn't look like that's possible at this case, but if they could stop getting injured and get some guys back, we've seen what this team is capable of, right? We've seen what they're capable of. Next up at 12, this might be an unpopular opinion, is the Buffalo Bills. I have to drop them, man. They have looked bad. Not bad, but they have looked underwhelming as hell the last 3 weeks. Again, I mentioned this when I talked about the Jets. 18-10. That score is not a real... That score doesn't really indicate how the game went because I thought the Bills did dominate the Jets. They just couldn't finish drives in the red zone. And that sort of speaks to what's been the issue with this team the past 3 weeks. The offense has kind of fallen off of a cliff. Josh Allen went from being this top 3, top 5 MVP candidate to just kind of being there, making mistakes, not looking all that sharp the last couple of weeks. Defensively, they looked good against the Jets. Anybody can, though. But this team is going to have a coming to Jesus moment at some point. I was hoping that against the Jets this past week, they'd go out, just demolish them, take care of business. I fucking bet on them plus 10 or minus 10. I thought that was a lock. Somebody told me to take a second mortgage out of my house and do it, and I did. So now I'm going to be homeless shortly. But the Bills, man, they got to have a coming to Jesus moment soon and figure some stuff out if they want to get back to that Super Bowl contending tier that people thought that they were at early in the season. Next up, we have the Indianapolis Colts, obviously off of a bye week. Not much to say about them. Just hoping in the upcoming weeks we can see an all-around performance out of them because it's either the offense looks really good and the defense looks or the defense looks really good and the offense looks bad. So if we can get a consistent performance out of this team, this is one of the better teams in the NFL, I think. Their defense is really good. I don't think their offense is really that good, but I think they're above average. And if they can consistently perform like that with their defense, they'd be a really good team. Next up, we have the Saints coming off of a nice win against the Panthers, man. I know 27-24. You think Saints, Panthers, the Saints should handle the Panthers, but the Panthers are a good team this year. And divisional games, especially NFC South games are always weird and spooky, right? So the Saints take care of business. I thought Breeze looked good. Obviously, they do. Michael Thomas got suspended, got hurt. Now he's ready to come back from injury. And Michael Thomas gets hurt, ready to come back from injury, gets suspended, gets hurt again. And now it sounds like he's not going to be ready for this week's game either. So, and then obviously Emmanuel Sanders is hurt. So they need to get healthy. But, their defense is starting to come around. And if this defense could sort of start picking it back up, then you're looking at, I don't know if they're going to be as good as we thought they were going into the season, but they can get up into that top 10, top 7, top 6 range. Next up, we have the Arizona Cardinals, man, a massive win. This is the win we needed to see out of this team, right? It's nice they can go out and beat the teams they're supposed to beat, but for a young playoff team, you need a statement win. And this was a big-time statement win, man. Kyler Murray, what a fucking performance on Sunday night. What a performance to go out and bring this team back to victory. Cliff almost botched it. That timeout on that field goal, you knew he was going to miss it. You knew there's so many things wrong with that. I hate when teams just settle for long-ass field goals, right? It was 2nd and 15 with 50 seconds left? They could have drove that down, right? They could have ran some more plays to try and make it closer. And then he calls a timeout, ices his own kicker, his kicker misses. But then they go to overtime. Their defense, you give up 34 points. The defense isn't that good, but they made big-time plays when they needed it. I mean, huge plays when they needed it. Budda Baker is a complete and total game wrecker. We already know this. I love this Cardinals team. I really do. I love this Cardinals team. And Kenyon Drake's hurt now too, but maybe, Chase Edmonds comes in and performs a little bit more efficiently. That's what some people seem to think may happen. I'm not entirely convinced, but it's possible. A huge win for the Cardinals. Huge win for them. And that does a lot for the psyche of a young team too. That does a lot for the psyche of a young team, getting a win like that. Next up, we have the Los Angeles Rams, who come back into the top 10. After leaving it last week, they beat the Chicago Bears, and they looked really impressive in doing so. Obviously, this Rams team's a little difficult to gauge because their 5 wins have been the 4 NFC East teams who are all terrible and the Bears who are not as good as their record indicates. But their defense looked amazing last night. I mean, just super aggressive all over Foles, making plays, getting turnovers, all that stuff. And then they were able to run the ball really well last night too, which is good to see. I still think this team is a dark horse Super Bowl team. I'll say it every week. All right, next up we have the Tennessee Titans lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, you have to give the Titans some props, right, for coming back after how bad they looked in the first half. But that's kind of been the synopsis of their season so far, is slower starts, letting teams that really shouldn't be in the game against them hang around until the very end. I still don't think this is the worst, even though they lost. This still isn't the worst team. The Titans, it says the record's 5-2. They're not 5-2. They're 5-1. So I fucked that up, okay? But I still think the worst they've looked this season was against the Broncos because that just looked like it was such an ugly win. But, yeah, I mean, you have to give them props for coming back in the second half, but you would like to see them play a little bit better to start the game. That way they're not always clawing back in the second half or always in these super, super tough games. And they got to figure something out about Gostkowski. I don't know if he's going to get released or what, but that's just unacceptable, man. He can't be missing that many kicks. That was not easy, but that was a very makeable kick to tie the game there at the end. And props to them for putting themselves in that position after looking so bad in the first half to tie that game and potentially go to overtime and win it. But they need to play better to start the game. That's for sure. This is still a really good team, though. Next up at 6, we have the Baltimore Ravens, who move up a spot after the bye. As you can see, I have them lower than any other team. They've just, or any other publication, but they've just looked up until this bye. They looked a little shaky. They've looked a little bit shaky. They have a massive game this week against the Steelers. That's going to tell us a lot about this Ravens team. So really nothing to say until we see that. If they can win, then I'm right back into believing that. Remember, I had the Ravens as the number 1 team. I think in the second or third episode of these power rankings. So if they can beat the Steelers, I think they're right back in that conversation, for me at least. Next up, we have the Seahawks at number 5, dropping 3 spots after losing to the Cardinals on Sunday Night Football. It's kind of a weird loss, right? Because it's a tough divisional game against a good opponent, and you have to think Russ doesn't throw, 2 or 3 picks again? Like, Russ isn't throwing those picks again. That's not something you could consistently rely on out of Russ. He's not going to throw. He's not going to perform that badly on a consistent basis, so I wouldn't be too worried. But again, man, I've said it and I'll stand by it. The ceiling of this team is definitely capped by its defense. If we're talking like a top 20 defense, it doesn't even have to be good. Like a top 20 defense, we're talking about, I think, easily Super Bowl favorites. But their defense just puts a cap on this team, man. They're just really incapable of getting stops at times, which obviously hurts them. Next up at number 4, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is kind of funny that I have them here higher than any of these other guys, because a couple weeks ago I was saying how I thought other publications were like too high and too ready to jump the gun on the Buccaneers, and here I have them at number 4, higher than anybody else. But they've looked amazing the last 2 weeks, dude. Blew the Packers out, obviously the Packers are amazing. Blew the Raiders out, and I think the Raiders are a pretty solid team. Just completely took care of business. It's their defense, dude. Their defense is just so good. It is smothering. You can't run on them. They'll get to you. They'll get pressure on you. They got amazing linebacker play, and now they have a really, really good secondary. That was the thing last year, even at the start of the season. Just think about the turnaround they've had in their secondary from the start of last year. Start of last year, they were terrible. Jamil Dean comes around. They make the Winfield pick, and all of a sudden they have a really, really strong secondary as well. This defense is terrifying, and now, I mean, this was a good defense last year, but their defense has gotten better. And now you have a quarterback who's performing at an MVP level because Tom Brady's playing out of his mind. Chris Godwin's hurt again. He's been hurt like 4 different separate times this year, which is annoying. But you bring in Antonio Brown. You bring in Mr. Big Chest himself, who, make no mistake about it, guys, Antonio Brown is a generational type player. And the one game we saw him last year in New England looked really fucking good. So I don't know, when Chris Godwin comes back, even without Chris Godwin, with Mike Evans and, Gronk now looks amazing again too. Fournette's come back and look amazing. I don't know how you play defense against this team, and I don't know how you score against this team. The Buccaneers might sneakily be the best team in football right now. Might sneakily be the best team in football. All right, next up at number 3, we have the Green Bay Packers. Took care of business against Houston. It's crazy to me that as a defense, Devontae Adams is going to get the ball 20 times a game, but yet he still gets the ball 20 times a game. The dude is maybe the best wide receiver in football right now. Aaron Rodgers looked really good after a tough week 2 weeks ago. Jamal Williams shows why you should never pay running backs because he comes in for Aaron Jones and looks amazing. And, yeah, the defense looked a lot better. Forced turnovers, all of that stuff. So, yeah, Packers here at number 3. Number 2, we have the Kansas City Chiefs, who completely destroyed the Broncos, took care of business there. It was good to see because they've had a bit of a shaky last few weeks. Ever since the Ravens game, it's been a little shaky. And, they completely dominated the Broncos. Just every facet of the game completely dominated them. Special teams, defense, offensively, completely dominated them. Le'Veon Bell looked really good. Clyde Edwards-Helaire looked good. Patty looked good. Their defense looked amazing. And special teams look really good, too. So, when you have a team playing like that on all 3 levels, it's impossible to beat them pretty much. And at number 1, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, they looked really good in the first half, dude. Like, I thought that they were making a big-time statement saying, we are undoubtedly the best team in football. And then they let the Titans creep back in. You'd like to see that not happen, but still, man, the Titans are a really good team, and Pittsburgh took care of business. This is an amazing defense. We already know that. Offensively, man, if Deontay Johnson can stay on the field, that guy is a freak. That guy is a monster. If he can stay on the field, and he got hurt again at the end of the game, I don't think it's that serious, though. But if he can stay on the field, man, he is a problem. They look really good. They're the best team. The Ravens game this week is huge. It is monumental. I can't believe that's not Sunday Night Football, and the world has to see the Cowboys-Eagles. I'm really sorry. As a Cowboys fan, I'm really sorry, guys. I'm really sorry you have to put yourself through that. But, yeah, the game against the Ravens will tell us a ton. It will tell us a ton about both teams. All right, I have to end this now because I don't want the fucking power to go out as I end this. So, yeah, like the video, subscribe. Where was I wrong? Why was your favorite team too low? Why was your least favorite team too high? Let me know, okay? Goodbye.